American President Donald Trump issued a final warning to Iranian leader Khamenei amid loud protests across the country. Don't play games with President Trump. This is the statement that the United States State Department published in Farsi, well, just to make sure you understood the message clearly. Meanwhile, in Tehran, the entourage of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei admits that Khamenei has developed an evacuation plan from Tehran in case the authorities fail to suppress the mass protests in the country, which have erupted amid a sharp deterioration in the economic situation. The Times reports this, citing intelligence data. It is also reported that Khamenei is planning to flee to Moscow since he has nowhere else to go. No one will accept him anywhere else. According to intelligence, Ayatollah himself admires Putin and believes that Iranian culture is very similar to Russian culture, so he thinks he will be welcomed there as one of their own. My name is Pechiy. Let's discuss this topic together, but before we start, I ask you to subscribe to the channel, like this episode, and leave any comment under this video. This really helps a lot in promoting content on YouTube, and I will be very grateful to you for that. Subscribe to my Telegram channel, Pechiy News, using the link in this video's description. There we publish breaking news as it comes in, and often it appears there faster than here on YouTube. So, the Times, citing intelligence data, writes that Iran's Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei has developed an evacuation plan. It's better to say, a plan to escape from Tehran, in case the authorities fail to suppress the mass protests in the country, which have erupted amid a sharp deterioration in the economic situation. In one of the previous episodes, we discussed this topic with you. And I'll just remind you once again that to understand the economic situation in Iran, one United States dollar is worth 1.5 million Iranian rials. You need to realize how extreme inflation is there. In the past year, food prices rose 75% and medicine 50%. And here's the last one. According to former Israeli intelligence officer Benny Sapti, who fled Iran after the Islamic Revolution of 1979, Khamenei is planning to flee to Moscow because he has nowhere else to go. According to the intelligence officer, Ayatollah himself admires Russian President Vladimir Putin and believes that Iranian culture is very similar to Russian culture. In general, Iranians and Russians are brotherly peoples who need to embrace and walk together into the sunset. That last part I added myself. According to the plan, 86-year-old Khamenei escapes with 20 people from his closest circle, including aides and family members. If he sees that the army and security forces, who are supposed to suppress the protests, desert, refuse to follow the leadership's orders, or side with the protesters. And, as a source in intelligence stated, Plan B is intended for Khamenei and his closest circle, his son and presumed successor, Mojtaba. Khamenei's escape scenario could mirror the evacuation in December 2024. His ally, the ousted Syrian President Bashar Assad, who fled from Damascus to Moscow and now, as the Times writes, is preparing to settle as a doctor in Rubliovka. He is supposedly a pretty good dentist. And so, according to the source, Khamenei's escape plan from Tehran includes gathering assets, real estate abroad, and cash to ensure a safe departure. Lee owns an extensive network of assets around the world, which as of 2013 was valued at $95 billion. Now, I think that amount might be even higher. And I should note here that the largest protests in Iran in recent years began on December 28, quite quickly. From the main bazaar in Tehran, where shop owners protested against hyperinflation and the surge in prices for basic goods, the demonstrations spread to other major cities and provinces across the Islamic Republic. According to the human rights activism news agency, the protests spread to more than 220 localities in 26 out of 31 provinces of Iran, that is, practically across the entire country. According to this publication, the number of people killed during the suppression of the protests has already reached at least 20, and the number of those arrested has exceeded 1,000. It is reported that militants of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, who protect the Ayatollah's regime, are opening targeted fire on the protesters. That is, they are shooting to kill. Earlier, United States President Donald Trump stated that the United States is ready to support Iranian demonstrators if the authorities in the country start killing them. But Trump hasn't acted yet. But it's important to note that mass protests in Iran have been going on for more than a week now and, importantly, are gradually taking on the characteristics of organized armed resistance. The current wave of protests, of course, does not compare in scale to the events of 2009-2010, when the number of those arrested reached into the thousands. But in terms of intensity and geography, it is comparable to, and in some places even surpasses, the protests of 2022. The key difference in the current events is the active participation of tribal and clan groups from rural areas. This is very important. This means both mass participation and scale. The presence of firearms among the protesters. I can't show this on YouTube, but if you really want to, you can find videos online where protesters actually have automatic weapons. At the same time, the actions of various revolutionary groups are being recorded, and by the way, there are quite a few of them in Iran, so they felt that they could start a revolution. The security forces, first of all, the Basij formation of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. This is the youth wing, and they also operate using combat weapons. Subtitles created by Dima Tozok. Unfortunately, this leads to an increase in the number of casualties and turns street clashes into local combat episodes with attempts to seize regime facilities. First and foremost, this refers to Basij bases, police stations and checkpoints, mainly in the provinces and rural areas. It's important to note that the Basij act with extreme brutality. At the same time, symbolic resistance is also growing, such as burning portraits of the Ayatollah, burning posters of regime representatives. This has all become a regular occurrence. Sometimes strange incidents also occur, for example, an explosion that sources linked to IRGC equipment, but exactly what was blown up remains unclear. Nevertheless, explosions are already being recorded as well. The protesters' slogans remain extremely radical. In Bukesha, for example, there were calls whose meaning boils down to the idea that the country will not be free as long as it is religious. And here is one of the slogans, which goes something like this: "Until all the mullahs are buried, this homeland will not become a homeland." The protests are accompanied by acts of brutal vigilante justice. In one widely publicized incident, rioters lynched a member of the Basij group. And as experts say, the violence from the protesters is not spontaneous but quite deliberate. And they demonstrate a readiness to escalate and use heavy means. At the same time, actions that appear chaotic on the surface often turn out to be tactically calculated. Let me explain what I mean. Again, there's a video of one of the episodes where a crowd of protesters deliberately parts to let a column of Basijis through, then closes in, attacks them, knocks them down, and takes their motorcycles. So, it might seem like it's just chaos, the crowd parts, the Basijis move forward, but no, it was organized. What's also important is that the core of the protest movement is made up of young men, and Baluchistan stands out in particular, where local residents openly express solidarity with the uprising Iranians and their readiness to resist. Amid the escalation, Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, made a tough statement, making it clear that there will be no dialogue with the protesters and that those involved in the unrest should be put in their place. It's telling that, amid direct conflict with Iran and a broad agent network inside the country, Israeli leaders are speaking increasingly openly in support of the protests. For example, on January 4, while opening a government meeting, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu stated that Israel stands in solidarity with the Iranian people's struggle for freedom and justice, and did not rule out that Iran may be on the verge of a turning point. Given the recent events in Venezuela, where the Maduro regime came under attack during a lightning-fast United States operation, such signals in Tehran are unlikely to be seen as mere rhetoric. Plus, add to this the statement from Trump himself, who is increasingly and openly hinting that he would be glad if the Ayatollah regime were to fall. And just recently, the United States State Department published an image in Farsi which basically says, "Don't play games with Donald Trump," and it's clear why it's written in Farsi, to make sure you read it carefully. And here, one can assume that after Syria and Venezuela, Iran could be the next target of a major geopolitical escalation. That's why we continue to watch the protests in this country. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. Friends, if you found this episode useful and interesting, you can support the work of this YouTube channel financially with your donation or a paid subscription using the links and details provided. In the description of this video, it says support the channel Alexei Pechiy. Choose any format that is convenient for you. I will be grateful for any support from you. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye, everyone.